Welcome, everyone. It's day 5. I can't believe it. The 2025 Revitalize Your Midlife Symposium. I'm so excited for tonight. Again, this event is designed to inspire, empower, and enlighten us all as we navigate the intriguing journey of midlife together. June isn't just about summer, although it's my favorite time of the year. It's also my birthday month. And this symposium is a testament to my personal belief that everyone deserves the right to feel good in their body and my ongoing commitment to lifelong learning. Midlife is that period ripe with reflection, growth, and most importantly, opportunity. It's a phase where we can leverage our past experiences, welcome change, and confidently stride into our best selves. My aim with this symposium is to equip you and me with the tools, insights, and motivation to successfully maneuver this thrilling chapter of our lives. So if you leave this event with one piece of valuable information, I'll consider this symposium a triumph. I'm pleased to announce that this symposium is sponsored by Small Space Pilates and the Sisters in Service podcast. While we are live, if you're watching and you have any questions, feel free to post them. Let's see if we can answer them while we are live with the person that we have today. If you are unable to join us in real time, remember that this is going to be available for replay. Again, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me and I'll make sure that our next guest has those questions and can answer them for you. So I am thrilled to introduce Christine Meyer. Christine is a board certified health coach and yoga body breath coach. She is deeply passionate about assisting women going through menopause to regain their vitality and wellness, with a special emphasis on improving sleep quality. Her approach is grounded in scientifically backed methods that encompass sleep hygiene, lifestyle adjustments, stress management, mindfulness, and breath work. So, without further ado, welcome, Christine.
Hi, Kat, again. Thanks for having me back a second time.
I'm so glad that you're here.
And happy birthday month
I want to
to you.
ask.
I think we've got a bit of a delay here.
Can you hear me?
You froze up for a second there, so I got the intro and that was about it.
Okay.
And then it stopped.
Real life, folks, real life.
Right.
So, Christine, how did you get involved with sleep? Why is sleep such a big, I mean, you do other things, but I know you as the sleep person, the sleep queen, the sleep diva, whatever you want to call yourself. Why is that so important to you?
I've been a health coach for a very long time. And when I first started health coaching, sleep really it wasn't in our curriculum at that time. So, coaching a lot of people on nutrition and weight loss and stress management and exercise. And once the research started coming out about sleep, I realized it was really a missing link for a lot of people, because if you're not getting good quality sleep, those other health goals that you have may be harder to attain.
Mm-hmm.
And then fast forward into menopause and my own journey with just night sweats and hot flashes and being sleep deprived for months at a time. I just realized that's really the area that I want to focus on, because it's not just the hot flashes and the night sweats, but also during this time of life, we have so much anxiety and stress. There's so many life changes. You mentioned, feeling good in your body, and a lot of us don't feel that when we hit midlife. There's so many changes. And so I realized it's just so many different factors involved that affect our emotional health and our sleep. And that's when I really started to zero in on midlife women and the menopause years.
Absolutely. So are you saying that all of these things that you just talked about are like it's, menopause, sleep, nutrition, sleep, exercise, sleep, it's all connected to the sleep pattern, right?
It really is. When you think about having a bad night's sleep, do you have the energy to exercise the next day? What's your appetite like? It's probably not the same. Are you cranky or moody? It really affects so many different things. And then if we look at it from a chronic perspective, it can affect your weight, as well as putting you at risk for a lot of different health conditions.
I'm one of those people, Christine, that I need 7 to 8 hours. I can function on 6. Anything less than 6, I start making bad decisions nutritionally and every other word you can think of. And so sleep is this huge component, but it also seems to be so elusive. And not just for women, but for men also. Like, we talk about getting a good night's sleep. What do you say to those people that say, I only need 3 to 4 hours? What are they missing? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, we can survive, let's say, on less than 6 hours, but that's surviving, right? What are we doing to get through the next day? Are we carbing up? Are we drinking lots of caffeine, which of course is going to affect our sleep the next day? There are very, very few people who can get less than 6 hours of sleep and be okay from a health perspective, but it's a very, very small percentage. And it's so small, They can't really measure it because there's so many factors. But, wearing that sleep, as we say, is that, that badge of honor. The less we get, the more we're working, the more successful we're going to be. It's going to affect you in the long run in some way or another, whether it be putting you at higher risk for heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, obesity. People who don't get good quality sleep are at higher risk of emotional concerns as well, like anxiety and depression. And we have research now to show that lack of sleep could be connected with increased risk of dementia, particularly Alzheimer's. And that's very scary to me personally, because we see that so much now in the world. So every part of your body, every system is affected by sleep in some way. And so when you look years down the road, that's when you can really start seeing the effects of that.
Well, you must have been reading my mind, because I was just going to ask you how a lack of sleep affects our brain. I know that I get frustrated when I don't get good sleep, but it seems as though everything we do or don't do can mean either great sleep or not so good sleep. Is that true?
Right. Exactly. So when we look at, brain health, we have 2 types of sleep. We have that REM sleep, which is where we're doing most of our dreaming there. And that is where we're processing emotions, particularly things that are stressful, things that happen throughout the day, trauma. We see a connection between poor REM sleep and PTSD. So it's that time when we're processing those emotions, things that happened to us that day, and connecting it to our past experiences.
Yeah.
And then we're, consolidating those memories. And then during deep sleep, that's when we are looking at cognitive function. So like you said, being able to make sound decisions the next day. It affects our mood regulation as far as how we respond to people, both personally and professionally. Like you mentioned, making sound decisions. You want to make sure you're doing that in both areas of your life, but it's not fun for those you love if you've had a bad night's sleep. I know for mine, it's not.
Yeah,
I'm kind of
absolutely.
moody. Research shows that we're not as patient with our significant other when we've had a bad night's sleep. So it really does affect us from both that emotional and that cognitive aspect, as well as I mentioned the increased risk of Alzheimer's possibly.
I have a question about deep sleep and REM sleep. Are they, like, if you have a great deep sleep, do you have great REM sleep also? Or are they that connected? Can you have bad deep sleep and good REM sleep? You know what I'm saying?
That's a good question. Typically, if you're not getting good of one, the other one may not be so great either. We're looking at the total sleep time. Studies do show that, if you're going to bed later than, let's say, 10 p.m., you're going to be missing out on some of that deep sleep, because deep sleep happens earlier in the evening. And then the REM sleep starts ramping up towards the early hours of the morning. And they're both key, because that physical, the deep sleep is really important for physical healing. So recovering from an injury or your workouts, or let's say
Yes.
you've had a surgery or you're sick, you need that sleep for the healing. It's also when our immune system is boosted. So if we are getting adequate
Nice.
sleep, hopefully we're at
Mhm.
a lower risk for getting viruses and
Mhm.
colds and flus and things like that.
Mhm.
And again, from that REM side, we're looking at, mood regulation, processing those emotions. So they are both very important. You can be getting a little bit less of one than the other. Typically, as we get older, we are getting less deep sleep.
Mhm.
We do see that in the research there.
Oh, yay.
I know.
Something else to think about.
Right, right. We
So
produce
I
less
had a,
Oh,
yeah, go
sorry.
ahead. That's
I was
okay.
going
Go
to say
ahead.
we produce less melatonin as we get
Mhm.
older. So a lot of people think, oh, well, older people don't need to
Mhm.
sleep more because they're not sleeping more. It's more that they can't. They should be still getting at least
Mhm.
7 hours. But there's a
Mhm.
lot of other factors coming into play. There's medications, there's
Yes.
anxiety.
Mhm.
Again, our circadian rhythm is starting to change there.
Mhm.
So taking a look at when we get older and how things adjust and doing the
Mhm.
best we can to make those adjustments, to keep that quality sleep. But it's never going to be quite the same as it was when we were
Right.
in our 20s.
Kids. Oh, I know. But don't you think, and I know this is just me wishful thinking, but it seems like we should get more melatonin as we get older. You know what I mean? Like this, or it stays the same. Like if I mean, I was in the military and I could sleep. Okay, I couldn't sleep standing up, but I could sleep almost anywhere. And like up a floor, give me a floor, give me something for my head, I could pass out. And so it's not so much now, and I think it's a little unfair, I'm just going to say, but I'm going to put that off to the side. So Christine, I heard a woman speaking, and she talked about how when we sleep, our brains go through, I call it a rinse cycle. I know it's not called a rinse cycle, but it's where your brain, it washes kind of the plaque and stuff that is accumulated. I know it's not called the rinse cycle. What is it called exactly, Christine?
You
I
can
call
call it
it
the
the
rinse
rinse
cycle if
cycle.
you want. I love that. But it's a way of our body. Our body is healing while we sleep. So is our
Mhm.
brain. It's what we call detoxifying or rinsing, like you
Mhm.
said. We build waste products in our brain throughout the day, just like we do in our bodies. And so
Mhm.
that detoxifying is done through what we call the glymphatic system, which is
Mhm.
particularly where it is detoxifying what we call particularly amyloid plaques from the brain.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
amyloids are what we see an increase
Mhm.
of in Alzheimer's disease. So
Mhm.
that's where they're looking at, does decreased sleep
Mhm.
put you at higher risk for Alzheimer's,
Mhm.
or does Alzheimer's itself cause the decrease in sleep because of the
Mhm.
amyloid? So it's kind of hard to say.
Yes.
It's that chicken and the egg kind of a thing, but it's definitely
Mhm.
something to pay attention to, especially
Mhm.
since we know that sleep deprivation puts us at risk for so many different health problems. So yes, the brain
Absolutely.
rinses itself in
Mhm.
the middle of the night during deep sleep for sure.
It's funny you said amyloid because my father passed away from cardiac amyloidosis. And the
Mm,
doctor said that it could either go to the brain or the heart. And so when you talked about that just now, I was like, whoa, I had this kind of epiphany of
mm,
how important sleep is. So stress is a part of our life. It could be good stress or it could be bad stress. But stress is stress, and your body has no idea to differentiate between the two. So if someone feels incredibly stressed for whatever reason, what are some strategies that you can give to someone who, and maybe it's just a stressful time in their life at the moment, it's not ongoing, but it could be something that's causing them to lose sleep. What kind of advice would you give to all of us, because we're all a little stressed, to help us sleep better?
I think the first key is to be aware of it. We're on overdrive
Mhm.
all the time, it seems, these days, and we're not even
Mhm.
aware that we're feeling the stress. We think of stress of always being
Right.
in our brain, but our body feels it too. And
Yes.
so we get used to muscle tension and headaches and maybe holding our
Mhm.
breath and heavy sighs, and we just
Mhm.
don't always realize that our body is keeping the score. I don't know if you've
Mhm.
read that book or not, but the body does keep the
Mhm.
score when we go through any kind
Yes.
of stress there. So that's the first part of it, is being aware that the stress is happening and that you're starting to hold it in your body, and practicing mindfulness with that, just really going inward and learning to relax your muscles. That's why I like relaxation breathing so much, because
Yes.
it's so simple. Anyone can do it. You can do it anytime, anywhere. It's free, accessible to all. And when we are learning to breathe properly, which many of us don't, even just on a day-to-day basis, our body can then function properly by getting the oxygen that it needs to the brain and the physical body there. And the more we are practicing on going inward and paying attention to how we feel and responding in that way, and practicing breathing, or it could be meditation, yoga, whatever floats your boat, but at least finding some way to kind of go inward and check in with yourself throughout the day. Because that's one thing I've noticed is we have stress breathing a lot. And when we are stress breathing during the day, it's going to transfer into night. We may end up stress breathing at night, which can cause nighttime awakenings. And so the two are really connected. And so, there's so many breathing exercises out there. We think of box breathing and 4-7-8 and triangle and all of that, which is great. But at the same time, if we don't know how to breathe just properly from moment to moment, those breathing exercises may not be as effective, especially if we're doing them, improperly. But also, too, we just have to learn to be throughout the day. And I think that's where we really struggle with, is just learning to just take moments to take a time out and notice how we're feeling. So for me, anything where we're just taking a moment to be still and notice how we're feeling is really, really key.
I think sometimes people think breathing it's like, oh, that sounds too simple. It can't possibly work. I can tell you that when I've had moments where I feel like my brain is just going and my body is tired, I've done alternate nostril breathing, which seems to help me a lot. And from what I understand, alternate nostril breathing actually relaxes both hemispheres of the brain at the same time. But when we're stressed, it's also very shallow breathing. And then we have, our shoulders like this, and we're trying to take a breath, and we can't, because we can't just open up. So I think you're right in about just saying, okay, what's going on here? Being aware of it, and then understanding, what can I do? And breathing is probably your most efficient thing that you could do right now. You can go in the bathroom at work and just do, it doesn't even have to be 40 or 50. You do 5 breaths of inhaling and exhaling just normally. It doesn't even have to be any kind of breathing. Is going to help you bring that stress level down. So I'm glad that you mentioned that quite a bit.
Right. Thank you.
So I know that a lot of people, I have one. I have a sleep routine where my body says, oh, we're getting ready to relax. We're getting ready to, we're powering down. How important is it to have a sleep routine for people?
I think it is, because again, we need to transition from the busyness of the day into sleep. We need that transition time. If you're go all the way up until bedtime, you may try to go to bed and do a breathing exercises or meditation or whatever it may be. And it still may be pretty hard to turn off your brain. And I don't like to use the word turn off either, because we don't want to do that, but calm your brain. So we need to have that transition time. It's similar when, let's say, you get home from work, you're taking off your work hat, putting on your mom, dad, grandma hat, whatever it might be. You need a little bit of transition time to go from that role to the next. It just helps with easing your brain there. So, preparing yourself for bed in that way that you do, it's a way for your brain to say, okay, it's time to wind down now and prepare for bed so that you can gently fall asleep.
Oh, yeah.
You may have heard the term that going to sleep should be like landing a plane, right? You're preparing for it. You're slowly descending. You're not
descending.
You're not jumping out of the plane, right? And I heard that once on a podcast, and it really stuck with me. It's true. You're preparing for the landing, basically. And when you're able to do that in a gentler way, it's going to make drifting off, much easier for you.
Yeah. And I think it's important for people to find their sleep routine. Like, I've had to try a couple things, take some things out of my little toy box and try them out. I know for me, taking a shower at night really starts that calming sensation for me. I have some big comfy clothes and my slippers. I call them slippies to people, people are like, what? Um, and I just get into this very relaxed kind of, I'm not working anymore. I'm not, trying to teach people anymore. It's just about me. And it's funny how you can do it a couple times, and about the third or fourth time your minds go, hello, are we taking a shower? Are we relaxing now? What's going on?
Yeah.
So even if you have just one thing, start with one thing that you can do that can really help you to sleep. I just came back from visiting my mom, and it was super, super quiet. Like I'm one of those people where it's too quiet, it's too loud. You know what I mean? So I put on, I guess it's white noise or something on my phone. And it's funny how something like that actually really does work. So try out some of these things and see if they actually work for you. So, Christine, I'm going to ask you, what one thing about sleep did you have to battle a little bit? I know you talked about menopause, and that's a whole nother conversation. But how did you get your sleep back from going through menopause?
Well, the first thing I worked on was getting my hormones balanced. I did go
Mm,
on hormone replacement therapy.
mhm,
Not saying everyone has to do that, but that's what worked for me because,
mhm.
like I said, the hot flashes were just incessant. It was night and
Oh,
day.
yes.
You're not sleeping at night. The next day is
Mhm,
going to be horrible. And it was affecting my cognition. I couldn't remember things. I was moody.
mhm,
I didn't feel like myself. So got my hormones balanced out, and then
mhm,
started working on stress management, because we're more prone to getting anxious with menopause as well, and
mhm,
really focusing on a sleep schedule. That's one thing that I was never really great at.
mhm,
I just kind of went to bed when I was tired. It could be 10, it could be 11, and then hitting that snooze 3 or 4 times before getting out of bed.
mhm,
And so what I started to do was, focus on, when's the ideal time for me to get up, and when should I go to
mhm,
bed based on that. And then just gently adding time. So I
mhm,
would add maybe 15, 20 minutes, going to bed earlier, do that for about a week or so, and then
mhm.
gently keep doing that with the clock.
Yeah.
Because if you're getting, let's say, 5, 6 hours sleep and you shoot for
Mhm,
7 or 8, there's a very good chance you're going to end up just laying in bed, tossing and turning, staring at the
mhm,
ceiling, getting frustrated. So it is important to
mhm,
just add that sleep gradually. But
mhm,
that's what really worked for me, was getting on that
mhm,
schedule and getting the hormonal
mhm.
symptoms balanced out.
I think one of the things that really helped me is I set my alarm. So if I set my alarm clock for 6, my alarm clock starts to go off at 5:30. So I have that little extra buffer. And my husband actually, instead of the lights just coming on and you feel like you're being interrogated because the lights just pop on, he has them to where they gradually just come on. And so you get this nice little soft light. You're like, okay, I'm waking up slow. And it just feels like a gentler time for me to be able to wake up. But again, you have to find what works for you. So, I'm giving you some, Christine and I are throwing some stuff out there. Just try it and see what happens. Don't just try it once. You got to try it a few times and see if it works for you. And I just feel like if I didn't have my sleep routine, I would never sleep. And during menopause, my poor husband was just, poor thing. I had the covers off, covers on. I think he was dizzy, you know. But thank goodness, because I did the hormone replacement therapy also, and it was the best thing I ever did for me. And my sleep came back, like I'm like, oh, thank goodness. That's probably the best thing about that, and no hot flashes.
Exactly. Right. My husband kind of loved it because I was his personal furnace, it was just heating up the
Yes.
bed at night. But yeah, it's frustrating because
Hmm.
you're drenched in sweat, hot 1 minute, and then a couple minutes
Hmm.
later, you're freezing to death and you're shivering because now you're soaking wet.
Yes.
And it's just that back and forth all night. And so, again, strategies you can
Hmm.
use breathable linens and wear breathable
Hmm.
pajamas that are moisture wicking as
Hmm.
well. And yeah, it's not a one size fits all. I'll run into
Hmm.
people who say, well, tell me how to get to better sleep. And it's like, well, do you have
Hmm.
30 minutes? Because it's
Yeah.
different for everybody. And
Everybody.
especially for
Yes.
women, we have to
Hmm.
be somewhat of a sleuth to find out what those sabotagers are.
Hmm.
I think it's important to look at breathing, not just from the stress management part of it, but from a physiological aspect, because our risk of sleep apnea and snoring greatly increases with menopause. And so it's very important to get checked out if you feel like you might have sleep apnea as well. Again, that's a whole other
That's a
chapter
whole nother
there, but it's
conversation.
very significant for a lot of people. It really is.
Yeah. I think sometimes when we're having an issue, and I'm talking about people in general, we look for outside things. Like people say, okay, I'm having a hard time sleeping. Maybe they're not perimenopausal or menopausal, and they buy a better bed, they buy a better pillow, and those things can help, but we have to work on ourselves. We have to say, okay, maybe it isn't me. What can I do? Because, having a great bed and a great pillow and a great environment and all this other stuff to sleep in is great. But if you're not working on yourself, doing things to help you sleep better, like movement, like the breathing, doing the yoga, whatever that is for you, I think that, they're going to say, oh, well, I had a better bed, I bought a better bed and a better pillow and it didn't work. Work on yourself first, see how that starts and that works for you. And then, I'm sure a bed, is probably a good idea, especially if you've had it for a long time. But I tend to think that people look outside instead of working on themselves. What do you think about that, Christine?
I agree. We live in this culture of quick fixes. So, we look for supplements or external things. Like you said, they can be very helpful and beneficial.
Mhm.
Sometimes you make one change and it may help things, but I would say
Mhm.
for the majority of us, that's not the case. And it is work, just like any other lifestyle change that you're having to make, you need to put in the work. And I think that's hard for a lot of people, especially when it comes to sacrificing maybe some television time in the evening and getting to bed on a regular schedule. Sometimes that involves giving something up, and we don't always feel ready to do that.
Mhm.
So you definitely have to, yeah, make that lifestyle change and work on yourself, because
Mhm.
how you live your day is going to affect how you sleep at night from the minute you get up in the morning.
Mhm.
And so that's why it's really key for not just that wind down routine at night,
Mhm.
but really just caring for yourself throughout the day, like you said, through movement and
Mhm.
nutrition and paying attention to how you feel throughout the day.
Yeah,
That's
it's
so key.
self-care.
It
I
really
mean,
is.
self-care is it's all bundled together. That when you work on yourself, there's a good chance you've got great nutrition. Which, by the way, let's talk about nutrition. How does that affect our sleep? How does eating, like some people can eat before bed, some people can't before bed, but how does nutrition affect our sleep?
So generally speaking, the healthier eating habits you have, you're
Mhm.
probably going to have better sleep. Studies
Mhm.
show that diets that are very high in added sugars, people tend to not sleep as well. Like you
Mhm.
said, some people can eat before bed. It depends on what you're
Mhm.
eating and how much. A small
Yes.
snack is usually okay, but you may find
Mhm.
that if you have problems with indigestion or acid reflux,
Mhm.
you're going to want to avoid those spicy foods before bed, trying not to eat meals very late. Um, if you are eating things that are very high sugar before bed, you can end up with a blood sugar spike and then a crash, and again that can lead to those late night, early morning awakenings, those
Mhm.
2 to 3 a.m. awakenings that we
Mhm.
see pretty frequently. So it can have a big effect. And
Yeah.
when we talk about nutrition, I would put caffeine in the bucket there, because that can really affect our sleep as well.
Oh, yeah. I think as I've gotten older, I realized that I can have caffeine up until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then anything after that, I'm going to be like wired for sound. And, it's just getting older and your body's changing, your metabolism is changing. But understanding what those things do for you, if you eat a heavy meal before you go to bed and you can't sleep, that's a sign you're like, maybe I shouldn't do that next time. And so if I eat, we always make sure that we eat and we have at least 2 hours prior to bedtime where we're able to at least digest some of it and be able to go to sleep, because that's the worst thing in the world, is to be laying there and your brain's like it's buzzing like this and your body's tired and you can't do anything about it. You're just like this, wide-eyed. And I think it's a horrible feeling.
It
It's
is.
just
It
the
is.
worst thing.
Yeah. We're supposed to be, be able to rest during that time, and your body's busy because it's digesting its food. And alcohol is another one.
Mhm.
I love my beer. Never was like a huge drinker, but
Mhm.
I can't do that in the evening anymore. Even one
Mhm.
beer, and I'm like, I'm done, because sure enough, middle of the night, I'm just going to be staring at the ceiling. So
Ceiling.
it's a grieving process for
Mhm.
some to get rid of their wine or their beer. But I got to the point
Mhm.
where it was like, I just don't like the way I feel when I drink it in general,
Mhm.
because like,
Yeah.
again, our metabolism changes as we get older. We can't metabolize
Mhm.
alcohol the same that we did. We actually metabolize it quicker. And so
Mhm.
sometimes I just, even if it's the middle of the day, I just don't feel well when I drink. It's just a crappy
Mhm.
feeling. And it's like, this is not worth
Mhm.
it for me. And it's not enjoyable
Yeah.
anymore. So I'm thankful for the mocktails that are out there and the non alcoholic drinks. People are really
Mhm.
hopping on board with that, the adaptogenics.
Mhm.
So we can still feel like we're treating ourselves and enjoying
Mhm.
ourselves and not missing out on anything. But yeah,
Right.
it really, so many things changed during this time of life that we just couldn't tolerate. We can't tolerate now what we did before.
It's hard to keep up, right? Everything's changing so fast and you're trying to keep up and finally you just say, I can't. I can't keep up. So you have to pick, I think that you, whatever the problem is that you're having, if it is sleep, tackle that. Tackle your sleep and see how that affects the rest of your life. And then say, okay, I got my sleep underway. Now let's tackle this.
Mhm.
If you try to tackle all of it at the same time, oof, that's like a
Yeah.
full-time job. I'm just gonna say.
Right. Yeah, it can be overwhelming. And I've
Mhm,
coached people who are trying to get into an exercise routine and they're not
mhm,
motivated and they're having a hard time getting to the gym. And then
mhm,
once we start diving in, it turns into, well, I
mhm,
really need to get to bed earlier so that I can get to the gym
mhm,
in the morning. So the coaching
mhm,
shifts more towards sleep so that they
mhm.
can, do their
Yeah.
exercise routine. So
Mhm,
it really can make a big difference. And I think it's
mhm,
one of those things that we don't always put on the front of our mind when we're talking about lifestyle change. It's kind of,
mhm,
we might push it away or might not even realize the effect that it's having until we
mhm.
do get into those deeper conversations.
Absolutely. Christine, what kind of supplements do you think could help or maybe not help? Because I think again, we don't work on ourselves. We're like, I want to get this supplement to help me sleep. Are they effective or no?
They can be. For example, a big one we talk about is magnesium, but it's not a sleep aid. So
Mhm,
what magnesium does is it works on the nervous system and the muscles to help them relax. When you're
mhm,
feeling more relaxed, you're going to be able to sleep better.
mhm,
So it's the same type of thing with, drinking herbal teas. They're not going to make you
mhm,
go to sleep, but they cause your body to be more in that
mhm,
relaxed mode.
mhm,
So they can be helpful. Again, typically it's not that one thing that's going to help you. And
mhm,
so it can be a part of your sleep routine, especially
mhm,
if you find that you are deficient in any kind of
mhm,
a mineral, vitamin, whatever it might
mhm.
be, to address that. So they can definitely be a good supplement to your
Mhm.
routine, but usually not just the quick bullet that we're looking for
Right.
there. And you want to look at the quality of the supplements that you take
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah.
How they're made, where they're made, how
Mhm.
they're tested. Do they really have the amount of ingredient in there that's really needed to make a difference
Yes.
there?
Absolutely. I think it's always a safe bet to, have someone prescribe that for you to say, okay, let's try this melatonin instead of just going to, I remember my mom was, my mother loves Walmart and she went to Walmart. She bought this big thing of, I think it was vitamin C or something. She goes, do you think this is good? And I was like, well, Mom, I don't know if it's good. Have you been told you need that? And so even I, in the fitness industry, I don't prescribe any kind of vitamins because you don't know how it's going to affect people. So I tell them, go to your physician, find out what you're deficient in, and, go from there because you just don't know how people are going to react to that.
Right, right.
I want to ask a question about there are a lot of sleep aids like fit watches and things like that. Now, I do have to tell you that I have a watch that monitors my sleep, and it became kind of, how can I say, it became stressful. Because, so remember in the beginning of our conversation, I said, what's the difference between, restful sleep and or deep sleep and REM sleep? Because one would be up and the other would be down. And I'm like, wait, what's the difference? So are those effective? And because I got kind of competitive with myself. I would think, oh, I'm sleeping really good. And then my watch would say, wow, you suck. You know, and times when I didn't feel like I slept well, they're like, yay, good for you. And I'm like, wait, what? So how I mean, are they helpful for people or not?
They can be helpful, and depending on what modality you're using, what kind of tracker, whether it be an app or a watch or an Aura ring or what have you, they're not 100% accurate. They can be helpful for, let's say, getting a baseline measurement. But again, they're not 100% accurate. And they can be stressful. Like you said, I tracked it for a while as well. And I saw that I was getting very little deep sleep, and it kind of stressed me out. And then, like you
Yes,
say,
absolutely.
your watch can be telling you one thing, but you're saying, well, gosh, I feel like I slept great. And I think that's more important sometimes, is to think of how you feel subjectively, because that objective data may not be 100% accurate. So they definitely have their use. But if you find you're stressing and getting stressed out, getting competitive with yourself, like you said, to try to force yourself to sleep better, it could be counterintuitive. So definitely have their place, but it's not for everybody. That's for sure.
I'm one of those people that I just told you that when it's too quiet, it's too loud for me. So I have the TV on. It's low, it's like a low hum, and it kind of lulls me to sleep. Can you talk about, and I guess it's different for people, but how we're in this world of, we're always looking at the screen, we're always looking at our phone. How does that affect our sleep, right? If you're looking at your phone right up until before you go right to sleep, does it help people or does it depend on the person?
It does depend on the person. There's research that came out in the last year or two that, watching TV before bed really doesn't delay sleep for as long as we thought. People are wearing blue light blocker glasses or changing their screens, which can help. What we're looking at really plays a really big part as well. So are you on your computer looking at work emails or working? Are you on social media looking at things that are stressing you out? Are you watching the news? Are you
Oh,
watching a
Lord.
horror movie versus a comedy? So, some
Right.
people can watch TV right up until bed. But, think about how it's affecting you, and your sleep. If you're getting anxious, having nightmares, thinking about the things that you just saw before bed, then it's time to, have that boundary of more of that wind down time. Like I said, TV, they're showing not too much of a huge effect. The phone and the computers could be a bit more, just because of what we're doing on them.
Right.
So it is individual for everybody, but that's something to pay attention to. You may not even realize it. So if you're used to watching TV up until the time before you go to bed, see how you do with turning it off maybe at least 30 minutes earlier and having a wind down routine, and notice the difference you feel. Again, try it for a few days, but I guarantee you'll probably notice a difference in how you're sleeping in general, or just how quickly you're able to get to sleep.
I know they talk about the light from like the computer and the phone. Is that the same kind of light that interferes with your sleep as on the TV, or are they different?
They're pretty well. From the TV may not be quite as harmful. It's
Okay.
still blue light, but not as much as it is from the screens. And it could be the distance as well. When we're looking at a computer or a phone, it's right there in
It's
our
like right
face.
here.
Yeah. So again, you can change your settings to where it's that nighttime setting, where the blue blocker glass is.
Oh
But
yeah.
I watch TV. I can watch TV up until the time that I go to
Mhm.
bed. I try not to look at really stressful things,
Mhm.
but I kind of rewinded from that, because I just found that my sleep was affected by it. Not in a huge way, but when I
Mhm.
incorporated more of that wind down routine for a longer period of
Mhm.
time, I'm falling asleep better, and I am
Mhm.
sleeping more soundly.
Mhm.
So again, sometimes we don't always notice the difference until we actually try it out and see, and how
Mhm.
much better we feel afterwards.
Yeah. is it effective for our sleep to have a time set where we go to bed? So I start my wind down around 9 o'clock, and I'm taking my shower, I'm putting my jammies on, I'm getting, is it effective, or is it just, oh, I'm sleepy, I'll go to bed at this time? Is it better to have a time where you're not necessarily asleep, but where you're in the bed and it's that final, where your body's like, oh yeah, we're in bed now? Does that help?
Yes, and that's one of the top recommendations from sleep experts. The Sleep Foundation is to have a sleep schedule as much as you can, even on the weekends, where you're going to bed around the same time, waking up around the same time, because now we're keeping our circadian rhythm in check. And so that does make a big difference. In addition to the amount of sleep, is to get on a sleep schedule the best you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know that the time changes, like from spring to summer or winter to spring, whatever it is we're doing now. How does that affect our sleep? Is that a big factor in how our sleep is affected?
It can be, and it is for
Mhm.
a lot of people. There's research showing that when we, turn the clocks to, the summertime hours, that there's actually more car accidents, more heart attacks, things like that, just because of that 1 hour shift. It's really quite interesting. So there are people lobbying, to keep it just to standard daytime throughout the year. We're not farmers anymore, so we don't need it. But it can affect that. The change, depending where you live, it can be really major, depending on, the type of work that you do. So there are things that you can do to kind of prepare for the time change, but it can take people sometimes a week or two to adjust to it.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Christine, I bought a sleep mask a few months ago, and it's probably one of the best things that I have ever bought for myself for my sleep. So I'm one of those people that I'm sleeping, and then as soon as I open my eyes, my brain's like, "Woo," you can hear the gears going. And so I bought a sleep mask. Are there other things that people can use to help them sleep? Because with a sleep mask, I can open my eyes. I'm like, oh, it's still nighttime, and I go back to sleep. And even though it's dark without the sleep mask, when I don't wear it and I open my eyes, it's like my brain's like, oh, we're awake. Let's go. Let's do this. So are there things aside from the sleep mask that people can use, and how effective are they?
Yeah, that's a great point, because even light from an alarm clock or just a little bit of light coming in from your blinds can be disturbing for some people
Mhm.
and can affect your sleep quality. Or if someone's awake in the other room, and my husband gets up in the middle of the night and turns on the lights in the kitchen, I can tell that back in the bedroom. So sleep masks are great, blackout curtains, whatever you need. If you're sensitive to sound, earplugs.
Mhm.
We have a lot of environmental noise that we might just be used to. And I used to be able to sleep with the windows open and hear a dog bark occasionally, and I can kind of hear the freeway. Not so much now. I'm the opposite of you. Is I need quiet. So
Yes.
earplugs are great as well if there's any kind of environmental noise,
Mhm.
even if it's noise coming from inside the house, that can be really be helpful.
Mhm. I do
Yeah.
know that I have some friends who have blackout curtains, and they said that it's great, and I don't know, that seems like a little far, I'm just like, I like my sleep mask. I can take it off and put it back. Blackout curtains, I'm like, is it nighttime all the time now?
Right. Again, everybody's different. I've seen
Mhm.
people on social media who taped like trash bags to their window, and I'm like, that
Mhm.
just doesn't look pretty to me. So
Mhm.
it's up to the individual. Now when I travel,
Mhm.
I always bring a sleep mask with me and my earplugs, because you
Mhm.
never know what the environment's going to
Mhm.
be like, whether it be a hotel or an Airbnb.
Mhm.
Is have your little travel kit with you. Get
Mhm.
advice there for your summer traveling there, because nothing's worse than being away from home, maybe even in a bed
Mhm.
that's not your own and not that comfortable. You can bring your pillows,
Mhm.
but just the noise and the lighting can be such a big
Mhm.
disruptor.
And there you go, reading my mind again, because that was my next question. Was why? Stop it, Christine. Stop it. I just coming back from my, like I said, I visited my mom, and it was a comfortable bed, but it was different than the bed I was used to. So my body was, I kept tossing and turning, and it didn't, not that it didn't feel good. I did get sleep, but you never know how your body's going to be affected. It's thrown off. You're not in the same environment. So take all those comforts of home that you use for sleep, and see what it is you need, and what you don't need, because I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I'm just going to say.
Right.
Um
When my husband and I go on a road trip, he's got his wedge for under his feet and his special pillow, and I've got my body pillow and my special pillow. So half the car is filled up with just our things to be comfortable, but it's definitely worth it for sure.
what is your opinion on naps? Are naps a good thing? Do we, if we need a nap, does that mean we didn't sleep well before? What is your take on taking a nap? I'm
So
for it, by the way. I'm a yay naps.
yeah, and I can't nap unless I'm dead tired. And there's definitely nothing wrong with napping at all, assuming it doesn't interfere with you going to bed that night. So it is recommended if you do nap, try to do it before 2, 3 p.m. Don't do any really late afternoon naps, and try to keep it to maybe 20 minutes or so. We find that that's kind of like that quick cat nap where it's just enough to give you some energy to get through the day. Because if you sleep too long and then you wake up in the middle of a sleep cycle, you kind of end up with that grogginess. It takes you a while to get back to reality there. So it's perfectly fine. Some people are just, they love to nap. They do it. It doesn't cause a problem. So nothing wrong with it at all. Now, if you
I
find
get
you're napping consistently because you're not sleeping well, then that's something to pay
that's a
attention to. But if
problem.
you do
Right.
need to do that, just make sure that it's timed right and you're not doing it for too long.
And I think that sometimes, like when I take a nap, it means that I am sleep deprived, because my naps are an hour. Like I will nod off, and all of a sudden I'm like, what just happened? But I think sometimes just sitting quietly, I close my eyes. So when I'm at work, I was, I go into my other office, also known as my car, and I'll take the seat back, and I'll just close my eyes and just get a few minutes of just peace and quiet. And it's amazing what that does. It calms the mind, it calms the nerves. I'm telling you, try it, you know.
Yeah.
But naps, yeah, I don't do short naps, so I must be a cat nap,
Oh, I like
right?
that. I didn't even register that. You've just got yourself a new branding there.
There we go. I
Well,
just
yeah,
find that when that
yeah,
when I nap, I'm probably sleep deprived, because
yeah.
my naps are not 15 or 20 minutes. They're
Mhm.
much, much longer. But I'm fully aware that when, I'll say, wow, I didn't sleep good that night. Maybe, you know, sometime during the day when I have a block of time, is maybe I can just sit comfortably. And if I happen to fall asleep, okay. But I try not to force myself to do it, but a lot of times I'll just fall asleep. And, sleep is one of the things that we need. I don't care if you're a man, a woman, whomever, if you're not getting good sleep, something's wrong. We need to, I don't like the term hacking our sleep, because it sounds like we're trying to cheat the system. But I think we need to find something that actually helps us to, to sleep better. So, Christine, if someone is listening and they say, I'm one of those people, I can't sleep, what is one thing that they could do right now before they go to bed tonight to help them, to give them an opportunity to try it for a few times to see if it'll help them to sleep? We've mentioned breathing as one. Do you have any others that might be able to help?
Yeah, so breathing is great. You mentioned a warm shower, so that's wonderful. Warm shower, warm bath. That actually helps to cool your core body temperature, which is what you need to go to sleep. And make it luxurious. Fancy soaps or suds or candles or whatever it might be. It could be stretching, yoga. I like to read before I go to bed. I have a great little amber light that just hooks up to my book. I turn the other lights out, so I'm not getting that overhead lighting, and I'll read. Some people like to journal. So just anything that kind of gives you that relaxation. I think I tell people, think about if you were just at home by yourself, what's something that you would do to kind of treat yourself, and maybe do that in the evening time. And I love your idea of just start off with one thing, just do that before bed. If you like it, great. If it didn't work, you can try other things, but it's doing something for yourself, just like you mentioned, being quiet in the car, that's you listening to your body and giving it what it's needing, so that you're not just pushing through all day long and then collapsing at night. So just really being kind to yourself, and just do things that make you feel good. And it could be hobbies too, if you knit or color or whatever it might be, things that bring you joy, make you feel relaxed.
I find that anything, like my husband and I like to watch comedies, something that just makes you, when you have that deep laugh, that belly laugh, that
Hmm.
it exhausts you to the point, in a good way. When you sleep well. So laughter, you guys, we need to have a sense of humor. Christine, how important is a lack of fluid, meaning water? Does dehydration affect being dehydrated? Does that affect your sleep? I find it does for me.
Hmm. Right. It definitely can. So
Hmm.
important to stay hydrated throughout the day.
Hmm.
Try not to get it all in at the end of the day, because that can lead to
No. Yeah.
nighttime awakenings to the
Oh, you're
bathroom.
going to be waking up a
Yeah, so if
lot.
you're chugging 32 ounces right before bed, you might have to pay for it in that way. But yeah, definitely
Hmm.
staying dehydrated, because it can cause awakenings, muscle cramps, things like that, headaches. So definitely important to
Hmm.
stay hydrated there.
Yeah. So I think what I hear you saying is that people need to find that thing that works for them. It's a little bit of homework, you guys, that you're gonna have to do, but start with that one thing. Do it for a week, okay? So you didn't think there was gonna be homework, did you? But try it, at least try it for 5 days and say, oh, don't try it one day and don't do it another day and then do it and then say, oh, it didn't work. Be consistent and see what happens with it. Do you feel better? Start to notice, wow, I feel better when I do this. I'm sleeping better. I, I wake up feeling better when I do these things. And having a sleep routine doesn't have to be a lot. I take a warm shower, I put on clothes, you know, I have this huge, my husband says it looks like I could fit 3 people in it, but it's warm and it's comfy. And, I put on my slippers and I feel like I'm getting a big old hug from it. And it starts that whole power down.
Hmm.
So, Christine, what if, for whatever reason, I have had a super stressful day and I'm usually a good sleeper and I realize I'm super stressed? And let's say they don't have a sleep routine. What do you do? Is breathing that thing? Is that a good way to start?
It can be, for sure. Again, it's
Mhm.
different, but that's where you can go inward and just pay attention to how you feel first.
Mhm.
Close your eyes and breathe. And what are you noticing? Are you
Mhm.
breathing through your belly and your rib cage, or are you feeling it in your
Mhm.
chest and your shoulders?
Mhm.
Um, is your forehead clenched? Are your teeth clenched?
Mhm.
Just really pay attention
Mhm.
and learn to just maybe relax from head to toe, focus on your
Mhm.
breathing. Because once you change the way you breathe, it's going to affect the rest of your body and your brain.
Yes.
Again, if you're a person who needs to get it out, write it out, journal it,
Mhm.
doesn't
Mhm.
matter. Nobody has to see it. You write whatever you
Mhm.
want in there, but just getting it down to paper, study shows can get
Mhm.
it out of your head. So we're not laying in bed
Yes.
ruminating
Yeah.
about it. There's actually
Yeah.
research behind that. So
Mhm.
it's about just paying attention to yourself and just,
Mhm.
what's going to feel good in the moment there, and trying not to just push through it, think of yourself as weak, or I just got to get
Mhm.
through this, but giving
Mhm.
yourself just even a little bit of time, like you said, to
Mhm.
just kind of wind down and go inward and pay attention to yourself is really key.
Because I think that's what we do as women. We're like, oh, I don't have time for that. I'm just going to push through. I'm just going to push through. And that's what we keep doing. We keep pushing through. And, there comes a time when you have to start focusing on you. and what you're doing and what you're not doing, because that's all important. They're like,
It
oh, the
is.
kids and the this, and one of these days those kids are going to be out of the house. Then what? You're still not sleeping. Now you're backtracking. You have to catch up. And that's always hard too, I think,
Yeah.
is being very present and realizing, okay, I didn't sleep good last night. Maybe I can find some time during the afternoon. And by the way, if you didn't have a good night's sleep, even though you're supposed to work out that day, please don't. Please don't work out. Put it on your calendar for another day. I've done that. I'm like, yeah, that workout's not happening today, but I could possibly put it here on the calendar tomorrow or another day. Work on your sleep because you're going to be so much better because of it. Christine, this is just, I love all the things you talk about. I really
Oh,
do. I
thank you.
just,
I love the
sleep
questions you
is,
ask and that we're in sync there, because I just think it's so
mhm,
important. And there's so many women who, and men, they know they don't sleep well, but
mhm,
it's just other things are becoming a priority. And I think it's about
mhm,
getting the information out there about how important it is without fear mongering, but just
mhm,
knowing how much better you're going to feel
mhm,
the next day and how much your
mhm,
health is going to thank you, in the
mhm.
future.
I think one of the things you had talked about journaling, and some people, I'm one of those people that my brain goes faster than my hand. I must have 10 journals and I haven't used one of them because I start and then I'm like, I give up. So if you're one of those people, here's what you can do. You can, you know, what do you call it? Talk to text or whatever on your computer. Get it out of your head. Talk it out. You can save it, you can get rid of it, you can do whatever. Get it off your chest, get it off your brain, and then go to bed and have a good night's sleep
Yeah.
because that's what's important. That's what's going to help you. I have a brother who does not sleep. He sleeps an hour or two, gets up, then goes back to bed, sleeps an hour or two, gets up. And I'm super worried about him. But he goes, oh, I can't turn my brain off. I know you've heard that one. I can't turn
Mhm.
my brain off. Before we go, what's one thing someone can do when you hear that? What do you say to someone when they say, oh, I just can't turn my brain off? What do you say to them?
Again, it's going back to, what is it you're thinking about? What do you
Mhm,
have control over? What don't you have control over?
mhm,
Physical movement is really great for,
mhm,
getting rid of that nervous energy there. Something I
mhm.
do want to point out is there are sleep disorders. So
Yes.
not everybody that all these things we're talking about today may not be feasible for someone who does have
Mhm,
insomnia, some other type of
mhm,
sleep disorder. So I just want to make that
mhm.
clear as well. You should really see your doctor, get some
Absolutely.
clinical care if you feel like you need
Mhm,
some assistance with that, because that's really key
mhm,
too. Not all these tips will work for people who
mhm,
have chronic sleep disorders, but
mhm,
again, looking at your life during the day and how it's affecting
mhm,
your evening time, and how are you winding yourself down, and how are you carrying
mhm,
yourself during the day so that you're not taking
mhm.
it all to bed with you.
Right.
That's really important. So
Yeah.
again, good sleep starts the minute we get up in the morning.
hmm I think it
And
was
then
really important when you were talking about the sleep disorders because if you're trying three or four of these different things we've talked about and they're not working, you may want to check into a sleep disorder and see because there's nothing more frustrating, and I'm going to use menopause for just a second. I tried every supplement that was out there and it did nothing for me, and I finally had to go get a professional to say, these are your options. So if you feel like you've been doing these things and it doesn't help to go get some to get a diagnosis. If they say, hey, you're fine, then it's your life. You're really stressed and we really need to pull back. Christine, I think I could talk to you for a whole nother hour.
let's do it
This
again.
Thank you for being here for the second time. You were here last year, and I just feel like we can't talk enough about sleep. I'm one of those people that I need to hear something three, four, seven times before I go, oh, maybe I should try this. So I think the more we talk about, the more we say it, the more we repeat it, I think people are going to start to say, wow, Maybe she knows her stuff, and she does, people. That's why I asked her back. She knows her stuff. Christine, thank you so much for being here today. Everybody, we've got something special tomorrow. So I hope you stay tuned. And that'll be day 6. And then we have day 7, and then we're done. Oh my gosh, it went by so fast. So until next time, thank you, Christine. For everybody who was out there, thank you for joining in.
And
We'll see
thank
you
you and
tomorrow.
happy birthday.
Oh, thank you, Christine.
All right.